Bloomberg's Francine Lacqua sat down with Richard Teng, the CEO of crypto exchange Binance, as he celebrates a year in the role. They discuss the rise in Bitcoin's price and the impact that the Trump administration could have on market sentiment and regulation.
It's been a year, actually, since you've been in charge. So congratulations on the year. But what are the biggest changes that you've implemented at Binance?
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure to be here. I do think that we have moved away from a founder-led, CEO-led company, firstly, to a corporate structure that's a board of director-led company right today. So we have seven directors with 3 independent directors, with an independent chairman at the helm. And the senior management, which include myself, work very close with the board of directors to chart our path going forward. I think that's one of the significant changes. We continue to invest very heavily into compliance. I think Binance has always been a user-first organization, but now we have added another dimension to that. In terms of compliance spend, we continue to increase it quite substantially. In 2022, our compliance spend was $158 million. That went up to $213 million last year. And this year, it'll go up even much more, right? So our compliance headcount, if you include know your customers, know your business operations, and about 100 tech staff that just purely look at how do you enhance the process, how do you include AI to bring about greater accuracy in the things that we do in terms of detecting anomaly, getting much better results from things like surveillance, transaction monitoring, know your customer, know your business, etc. is totaling close to 1,300 people. So it's a very substantial increase on that front. And we continue to invest very heavily into compliance. We are now the most regulated exchange globally, with 20 regulatory approval around the world. This year alone, we have gotten 6 regulatory approval, including in India, Argentina, Indonesia, Thailand, Kazakhstan, and Dubai. And that list goes on. And hopefully we can announce more good results before the end of the year.
Richard, when you look at Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, they're flying off the shelves. Is this the Trump trade? And actually, what are you expecting in terms of U.S. regulation and the impact this has on Binance?
Well, President Trump being elected certainly give a boost and give greater clarity to this. But I will say that 2024 has been a landmark year, and that momentum started earlier this year. So if you look at what happened in January this year with Bitcoin ETF being approved, firstly in the United States and then subsequently all around the world, from Brazil to Canada to Australia, Hong Kong, and the list goes on. It gives a lot of recognition and finally the respect that this sector deserved all along. And with the likes of all the largest money manager and all the top financial institutions around the world starting to recognize the value of this space, you have Larry Finn, CEO of the largest money manager, BlackRock in the world, that went from a crypto skeptic to a crypto believer. I think that itself speaks volume. So if you look at the Bitcoin ETF, it's the best performing ETF so far in the history of ETF, right? Again, it shows that institutionalization has started and mainstreaming has started.
And could the Trump administration change everything for cryptocurrencies?
Well, it's a big positive. I think the last 4 years, especially if you are in the United States, I think the last 4 years has been pretty tough, right? In terms of, regulation via enforcement, which is not necessarily the best form of regulation. But we have a very pro-crypto president. And if you look at, it's not only President Trump himself, but the House of Representatives, 2/3 of the legislator being elected are pro-crypto. Same story is happening at the Senate level. Many pro-crypto legislators and policymakers are being elected. And, this gives a lot of clarity, and President Trump has said that he's going to come out with very pro-crypto frameworks to support the industry. The discussion of a US Bitcoin reserve, really, I think is also very important in that conversation. It's not only the US that's looking at having a Bitcoin reserve. I think that sparked conversation in many different parts of the world, different governments starting to look into this. And that is a continuation of the momentum that we're going to see. And I do think that, I've said it earlier, I do think that the golden era of crypto is just beginning. We are between 6 and 7% crypto adoption globally. And if you look at history, what happened to internet, when you hit 6 to 7%, the next 10, 20% will come very quickly. So the pace of adoption will come very, very fast in the future compared to what you have seen in the last 5 years.
Richard, have you spoken, or has anyone at Binance actually spoken to President-elect Trump and his team?
Well, I think we are not a U.S. company. We do not have operations in the U.S. I think, but as part of the crypto industry, we congratulate President Trump on his election. U.S., as you know, have an outsized influence around the world in terms of his policymaking and rules. And I think that's a big positive, right? So I do think that many regulators, especially today, only 1/3 of global regulators are regulating this space. So going forward, you're going to see a lot more positive momentum, a lot more positive sentiment towards this particular industry, which is a big positive. So we certainly wish President Trump and his administration all the best in terms of supporting this industry, which is, to me, AI and blockchain are the two most important technological advances that will set the foundation and support every economic subsector, from real estate to supply chain financing to entertainment to financial service going forward. So any countries would do very well to come up with good policies, smart regulations to support the innovative aspects of these two technologies while managing the risk, right? It's going to bring in a lot of foreign direct investment, economic growth.
Are you looking more forcefully to re-enter the U.S. market? And if yes, in what kind of time frame?
At this point in time, it is not under consideration, but things always are fluid. We will always keep everything under close review for every market. We deploy globally. Today, we have more than 242 million customers globally. We're very happy with our global deployment and global efforts on that front. As I mentioned, we are the most licensed exchange on a global basis. This year alone, we saw 62 million new users coming on board, and the pace of adoption is very fast. Compared to last year, the number of institutions and corporate this year has surged on our platform. So the number of onboarding has more than doubled. So we will continue to focus our efforts in terms of global deployment in every region where crypto users are looking for us to support their journey. We'll be there.
But Richard, how much are you looking at, some specifics, for example, for the U.S.? I know that there could be a framework of stablecoins, which has been talked about by lawmakers. If that were the case, would you reintroduce your former stablecoin BUSD or look at something else in the market?
I think let's not speculate on things that have not happened. I think if you look at global rules and regulations, many regulators are coming out with formulations of stablecoins, including in Europe, where I'm currently at, in terms of stablecoin regulations. We look forward to giving our feedback to all the different governments coming out with their own framework to come up with smart regulations. Again, as I mentioned, supporting the innovative aspects of the crypto industry while managing the risk aspect. Similarly, if we see those regulations being released in the States, we're happy to play our part, giving our views and feedback from an industry participant perspective on what makes a good framework for participants as well as for users, right? What sort of protection should they be accorded under those frameworks?
I mean, you mentioned more established financial institutions entering crypto. What does it mean for crypto native platforms such as Binance? Do they use your platforms, and will that increase, or will they try and do another exchange?
We are very happy that there are more players, right, coming into this arena. It shows the mainstreaming, right? So the future is extremely bright. We are very confident of what we are doing. We have always been a user-first organization. As I mentioned, this year alone, in terms of the number of institutions, the corporates, the family offices, high net worth individual onboarding on our platform, it has more than doubled compared to last year. A lot of trading desks that in the past are just trading commodities, FX, stocks and bonds are now adding a crypto desk to their platform. A lot of sovereign wealth funds, foundations, endowments are looking to increase their allocations. So we are really support all the users in terms of their journey. Unlike many of the TradFi firms, our platform operate on a 24 basis around the world. So operational robustness, resilience is extremely important. But it's also very important that people have around the clock ability to make investments depending on news flow, to hedge risks depending on news flow, and to manage their investment portfolio on a very effective basis, which many of these other firms will not offer, including investment into ETF, which is a great low-cost product for retail investors that are not savvy enough to really trade crypto on some of the mainstream exchanges like ours. But it's their novice approach. Once they get to know more about crypto, I'm very confident they will gravitate towards exchanges that offer them 24/7 service.
Richard, there's also regulatory change afoot in Europe. So when do you expect to get your MiCA license in the EU, and what countries where have you applied?
As you know, we are today regulated in 6 different European Union countries. We have very close communications with all our regulators. And, we welcome what the European regulators have done in terms of MiCA framework, giving clarity to the industry, as well as giving clarity to users on the type of investor protection they should look forward. But as you can appreciate, all the conversation we have with regulators are necessarily confidential in nature. So as and when we have more news, we will share it publicly.
When will you select a global headquarter? This is the question that I keep on, that I'm sure you get asked on a weekly basis.
Oh, not necessarily weekly. I think I've answered that question many times and people know the answer to that. But these are very serious questions, right? So the senior management of the firm, together with the board of directors, we spend a lot of time. There are a lot of considerations, right, including things like taxation, whether the hub can really support our talent pool going there to work, what sort of regulatory framework is being recorded, can it, manage a firm with different product suites of our nature, etc. So there are a multitude of considerations, and these are very complicated discussions. We are in deep talks with a few jurisdictions, and like you, I hope that we can make a deliberation very soon and make those disclosures, but it requires time and careful consideration. And again, once we have reached a decision point, we will definitely share that with the public.
So can you give us an idea of where you're looking at and whether you have to reapply for licenses for global headquarters?
No, I think it's a different consideration for global headquarters, right? So again, we are very in deep talks in several jurisdictions that's based in different regions around the world. Things like double taxation, the regulatory framework, the regime, the ability for us to hub our, experts and our talent pool there. Those are key considerations that, we are in close conversation with the regulators.
So you can't tell us anymore?
I won't go anything beyond that.
Richard, talk to me a little bit about, whether, I guess, the model going forward will be more joint ventures in, local places or acquisitions of exchanges as a means to grow.
Well, I don't think there's a one size fits all, right?
Okay.
A different mode of operations may be needed for different regions and different countries. Even in a one region, different mode of operations might be needed. I mean, we have, for the majority of the 20 regulatory approval that we have, majority of them we apply on our own, right? There are a few that were acquired in terms of existing financial institution firm that we acquired and start operating. And there's, I believe, one joint venture so far. So, but different models are needed. So we will always consider what's the best and most appropriate model in terms of operations for local deployment.
Binance also owns a piece of X. So have you or CZ been personally in touch with Elon Musk since the US elections?
Our team has been in touch with the X team. I mean, not only post-election, I think we have been in constant dialogue with the X team on that front. So again, these are investments. We do have quite a lot of investments globally, and these are investments that we keep in constant touch with the companies that we have invested into.
So Binance is still also facing, of course, the investigation by the SEC. Do you expect that to change and to be dismissed now that Donald Trump is president-elect and will become, of course, the president, and also now that the SEC chair has resigned?
Well, there's an ongoing civil dispute between ourselves and the SEC. It's not a criminal. This is not a criminal investigation. It's a civil dispute. We intend to defend our position very, very robustly. We are confident of that. So I think that's ongoing. Other than that, as with any dispute, we can't really go into the details or any discussion on that front.
Final question? Where do you see Bitcoin going? And actually, if can it go to 120, 130 very quickly, and then does it lift other cryptos with it?
Well, at the beginning of the year in January, people asked me where Bitcoin will be by end of this year, right? So at that point in time, I believe Bitcoin was 40,000. I said, I believe it will definitely be higher than 80,000. I think I've been proven right. I think I don't have a crystal ball to look into the future where the coin price will be. What I see currently based on market trend is there very robust pent-up demand for Bitcoin, right, from institutions, and you're seeing a lot of allocation. I do think that if US come in with the strategic Bitcoin reserve and many other countries following suit, and sovereign wealth funds, endowment, and the rest starting to do allocation, I think those are big positive. I do think that, I said that at the beginning of 2024, and I'll repeat it here. I do believe that 2025 will be a better year than 2024 because as with any institutional adoption, which we started to see only in 2024, many of the institutions will need their time to do due diligence. Companies need time to do due diligence. And that normally takes 6-9 months through their compliance program before they're ready to onboard and do investments and allow their clients to come through those. So I think next year we'll be ripe for that with much more positive crypto regulations, firstly in the US and then subsequently around the world. Again, that's another big positive. And thirdly, in terms of interest rate environment, I do think that for the majority of 2024, we are still in a pretty high interest rate environment, and that has come down. And I do believe that inflation is under control in most countries. And with a much more benign interest rate environment, again, that's going to be a big boost for, risk assets throughout the world, including crypto. So for all those key reasons, I do believe that given the pace of crypto adoption, 2025 will be a better year.
But 2024 went from 40 to 100. Does 2025 go from 100 to 250? Is that the trend?
I wish I have a crystal ball. I wish I can make those predictions, but I can't. But many people have made those predictions. Some are extremely bullish. I hope they are right. I invested into crypto for some time now. And I definitely hope they are right. But do your own research.
That was Binance CEO Richard Teng speaking with Bloomberg's Francine Lacqua.